Welcome to Cashflow Savannah. Chandler, how are you today? You doing all right?
Yes, I am doing good. I am ready to talk some numbers. It's kind of funny because I was never really the math guy in school, but now with real estate, you kind of have to be.
Yeah. Well, in more than math, you have to be committed to your version of math, may I say, because in real estate, no one really has the same way of doing things. And our subject matter today is deal analysis. And if you're going to invest in real estate, you have to find deals. That's the hard part sometimes. And then you also need to analyze deals because you're not here to lose money. You're here to gain money and gain wealth and help people along the way and all the things.
Yeah, for sure. At the end of the day, it's kind of all about the numbers. It's just really hard to learn because so many people do it their way, and it's not wrong. They have their way of doing it, and that's that. And it's kind of tough as a younger investor. Like, which way do I choose?
There are many ways. Well, and a good friend of mine, David Green, he does not invest for cash flow. He doesn't. And he says it all day long. And he's an appreciation investor. I happen to be more of a cash flow investor. Like there is no wrong answer. You know who's more successful? David Green, not me. So, maybe I need to start investing in Silicon Valley like he does. I don't know, but there's a lot of ways to do this business for sure.
Yeah, no, I've heard I know Pace Morby says it a ton. He's like, the hardest thing about real estate, this is he says it. The hardest thing about real estate is knowing which path you're going to take and like what you're going to do. Because you
Mhm.
hear all these people talk about, oh, I do this, I do Airbnb, I do, I don't know, arbitrage, I do this, that, and just knowing like what path you want to take is like one of the toughest things to do. And I
That's
kind of
true.
agree with that because I always want to do, I'm like, oh, I like this model and I like this model instead of just picking that one model.
Well, and speaking of Pace Morby, another thing I really like that he says is that really for him, the sales price doesn't matter. Pace is about the terms. You never hear him talk about appreciation or cash flow. He's all about the terms of the deal. So there's another strategy is we're investing on terms, right?
It's the craziest thing. I do like his strategy. I love it because I mean he's very cash flow. He's all about cash flow. He'll pay $1 million, but if I can, he's like, the terms are good. I'll pay $1 million. To where some people are like, no, I would never pay $1 million for that property.
Mhm.
Um, so it's tough. Like choose your thing and rock and roll with it.
Absolutely. Well, and Craig Kurlob, who was on episode 11, I mean, he flat out told us the purchase price is not his number one thing. And I've always been very focused on purchase price. But you know who's really successful? Craig Kurloff. So he's really figured out a way, there's really, I just can't say enough. There's no wrong answer. So
Yeah.
it's very easy to be in a room with other real estate investors and feel like I'm doing it wrong, or maybe I should change. Really, my advice to anyone is you've got to figure out what it is that you want to do and you've got to run at it full force.
Mhm.
I am a cash flow investor and I've really gone hard on this market. Savannah, Georgia is my market. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to do different strategies in this area. But once you know a market and you know where it's going, I think that's very powerful. And then you can really focus on finding the deals in that market.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it kind of comes down to age too. Like we're Craig's a little bit younger, so he has more time
Yep.
and he can kind of focus more on appreciation because he's like, look at the bigger picture. I'm younger. By in 30 years, I'll be completely fine. Or if you're a little bit older, you kind of gotta focus on that cash flow. You can't
Right.
be too focused on appreciation.
Beatrice and Kevin that came on episode, they are hard nosed with their numbers and their deal analysis. And I know for a fact they turned down a lot of deals because they can't make the numbers work. And they're not necessarily looking at 3 years from now, like Craig Kurloff. They're looking at today, tomorrow, the next day. And again, they're all correct. We're not here to criticize anyone's strategy. We're here to actually promote all of them and just really educate
Mhm.
ourselves and our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to ask you, do you think if you were in your 20s, do you think your stance on real estate would be a little bit different? Do you think you would be more of appreciation, or do you think you would have the same strategy?
Well, this is my opinion. Okay. The younger you are, the less money you make typically. So really your finances and where you are and your capabilities are going to really affect your investment strategy. And that's a fact. Like if you don't have the credit, or maybe you don't have the income, or it's very hard to come up with the down payment, you're going to have to be like Aiden Wigfall, 17 years old. He's knocking on doors trying to save up money. Like that's something. I'm way older than 17, sadly, and I don't have to do that. Okay. So I'm able to jump ahead. It's much easier for me to get a mortgage because I have great relationships with bankers. I can back it up with the income. Like, I think your age really dictates your strategy. Number one, like you said, you have a much longer runway, so you can be a little bit more aggressive on things and maybe not go so much for cash flow, but you're also going to be limited in an area where someone that's in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and is very established, they're going to have other capabilities. But someone with kids, someone with a family, a full-time job, they're not going to have time to knock on doors. They're not going to have time to put up walls. They're not going to have time to, put in a sink. So they're arguably going to pay more for the rehab because they're going to be reliant on someone to do it. So again, there's no wrong strategy. You've got to work with what you've got. And that's a fact. You in your 20s can't do the same thing as me, but it doesn't mean you doing something is wrong or not correct. It just means you're working with what you've got and I'm working with what I've got.
So I want to ask you, like, how do you do your deal analysis? Is it? I know I work with you a lot, and you're just like, I smell it. Like I don't even really have to do anything. But I know, kind of after the fact, you kind of deep dive a little bit. Could you tell me what you did?
I'll tell you, where I'm at in my career. I make offers and I do the deal analysis later. And that's the truth. And I've done it 100 times. And it used to freak out my husband, who has not yet divorced me. And he learned after several years to trust me, because I know the market. I want to caveat that. I know this market. I know rental rates. I know short-term rental rates. I know how management works. Like I can smell it, and I'm gonna figure it out and make sure it works. And I still freak out after that. But I've always been very focused on purchase price. But when I first started out, to be honest with you, I was so uneducated. Bigger pockets didn't exist. Keep in mind, I read a couple of books and I knew what it could do. And so originally my focus was just on whether or not the rent would cover the mortgage. That was kind of my deal analysis. That's where I started. You know what? I made money. I bought real estate and I made money, and that was my deal analysis. Okay. So again, there's no wrong answer. And was I perfect? Could I have done better? Of course, but I kind of bumbled into an investment, and because I still own those properties, I'm doing fine. Would I be doing better if I'd have gotten 10, 15,000 more off the purchase price? Yeah. But do I think about that? I really don't. I mean, what have the rents done? I don't know if they've doubled, but close. Yeah, they actually have. Now that I think about it, the first one I bought, I believe the tenant was paying $1,100 a month, and it probably should have been about $1,200, but she was a little bit low. And that property, I pulled the numbers the other day, and it's now, the rent comps in that area are $2,300 to $2,400. So legitimately, rent has doubled. The price has not quite doubled, but it's getting there. But I've had it a long time, so real estate's very forgiving. Nowadays, my very quick back of the envelope analysis is I want that purchase price. I want 1% of that purchase price to equal the long-term rental numbers. I don't care what my strategy is, if it's short-term or long-term. I want to know that after I buy 123 Main Street, the rent's going to be about 1% of that purchase price. I do understand I'm going to have to put money in. So is that 1% of ARV? No, I'm really just looking at purchase price. And I know for a fact, because I've been doing this, that I'm going to put in 5 to 10,000, hopefully not more. Sometimes it is more. If it's a multifamily, I actually want less than the 1% rule, because it's a multifamily. I do expect it to do better, so maybe I'm just making stuff up. Maybe it's a $200,000 duplex. I want to know that it's going to bring in, $2,500 to $3,000 in rent, because it's a multifamily. I'm going to buy that expecting even better returns. I see people, overvaluing multifamily and paying more for it than single. And I'm a little bit opposite on that. More doors, more problems, more toilets, more problems. And sometimes the units can affect each other. Leak in one affects the other.
Yeah.
So I tend to be a little bit opposite on multis, but I do like multis. I mean, I like them. I just run my numbers just a little bit differently. So
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like when you first got started, you were kind of not on purpose, but playing the appreciation play, and it kind of worked out for you.
Honestly, Chandler, I wasn't that sophisticated. I didn't even think about the word appreciation, to be really brutally honest for you. My thought was, I'm going to buy these properties on a 15-year loan. I don't love 30-year loans. I've never even had one. And I said, okay, I'm going to buy it on a 15-year loan, which, my husband and I were doing this to retire. And so I said, okay, after 15 years, that tenant will have paid off that loan and then I'll make money on it. Like I really wasn't even for some reason focused on making money today. Is very much like, this is my future plan. And that is not a terrible plan. It's true. They will be paid off in 15 years and it will be paid off by the tenant. What a beautiful investment strategy.
Yeah.
Just trying to get better at it.
No, I like both strategies. Kind of like it's so tough. Like Craig's talking the other day. He's like, dude, don't even focus on the purchase price. And I like where you can real estate. You can get so creative
Yes.
with like kind of bumping up rent numbers if you want to, especially nowadays. If you want to rent out a room, if you want to do this. Now, I wouldn't suggest running numbers based on Airbnb or renting out by room, but if you are not cash flowing as much, you can get pretty creative. And I've found
Mm.
that a lot of people make it work.
Absolutely. Well, and one thing I think it's good to talk about today as we're talking running numbers are tools. And the tools that Chandler and I are going to bring up, we're not making any money off of it. This is not a promo show. I don't want anyone to feel that they're being sold. But one tool that I wish I would have had when I started is rentometer.com. I subscribe. I pay $99 a year for it happily. I mean, I don't complain about that price at all. But I know a lot of people that have gotten Rentometer on specials at $38 and $48 for the first year, something like that. But I want everyone to know that since I found Rentometer, that's been so helpful because I'm very focused on those rent comps. Okay. Again, that's a big part of my deal analysis. Everything in my personal investment strategy is to buy and hold. I'm not a flipper. So please keep that in mind. That's if you're a flipper, you don't really care about Rentometer. So I'm obviously giving you the wrong information. But now that I have Rentometer, I can put in an address and I can see all the listings, how far they are from the house. And the better I know this market, the more I have gone, okay, like Piercefield is a neighborhood in Richmond Hill that I love to invest in. And I was pulling comps in Piercefield just the other day. And I know the streets. Okay. So I pull all the comps and I sort of go, okay, which ones are Piercefield? Because not only do I want to see what's going on in that city or that zip code, I want to say, okay, a comp is really a comp if it's down the street. A comp in Piercefield is not a comp in Buckhead. Okay. That's like that's not a comp. Like you have to know your market enough to say, I'm going to stay within a mile, 2 miles max. That's a real rent comp. You go to a place like Savannah, Georgia, and half a mile is Ardsley Park versus the Garden District. And these are totally different rent comps, even though they're within half a mile of each other. So Rentometer, now that I can pull that pro report on Rentometer, I look at the neighborhoods and how close it is and what areas of town. That really tells me which comps are the best.
Yeah, and Savannah, it can get you in big trouble. I know that
Yes.
because it's just kind of all over the place. I know you were looking for a rent comp not too long ago, and now it seems like people are putting furnished rentals on
Right.
Zillow. So that pulls a comp, and you're like, that's definitely not a comp. So you just got to be very careful at what you look at.
That, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Chandler. I'm trying to comp a 3.2 that I was putting up for rent, unfurnished, no utilities, a rental comp. I'm on Rentometer. I keep seeing 2,800 a month, within a mile. And I'm like, really? A 3.2 in this neighborhood? 20. I mean, I knew that was incorrect, but until I got onto that pro report on Rentometer, sorry, this is a Rentometer sales call, but and you can click on each listing and view it online. And I realized these were fully furnished units, all utilities and furnishings included, which I don't even rent them that low. I was kind of shocked at those numbers, but those were skewing my rent comps. So I've got to strike that. That's a very good point.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that for sure. Because I mean, if you pull that comp and you base a deal off of that,
Yeah.
there's some trouble.
Yeah. Well, and on short-term rentals, I mean, a part of our job as short-term rental managers at Sid was here is we're going to pull comps. I mean, when we have a new owner, they're going to want to know what their property is going to make. Well, what the condition of the property when it's rented makes a big difference in that comp. So again, we're going to pull a comp on Rentometer, and then I want to click on each listing, as do you. And I go, okay, this one's luxury, this one's economy, this one's mid-grade. And how does that compare to the property that my new owner is bringing me? That makes a huge difference. You've got to not just pull comps, pull the right comps.
Yeah, for sure. That's what it helps, like that you're in the area too. I can't imagine trying to be out of state and not know
Yeah.
anybody. I would highly recommend calling somebody in that area because they'll know. We see a lot of owners get in trouble with that because
Yeah.
they don't know Savannah very well, and it can be street to street.
Right. Or they'll buy a property that they can't even legally rent short term.
Yeah,
And
that's
actually, yesterday I was taking a lunch by some out of state buyers, and they had one of their purchases here locally with a different agent that didn't understand short term rentals. They put him in a house and they furnished it. They started renting it short term, and turns out it was illegal to do it there. And
mm,
they had no idea. It totally messed up all of their numbers. All the time they put into analysis was done, and that property is now a long-term rental, and they were forced into it. That's why working with the right agent and property manager, it's going to cost you, but it's also going to save you, ultimately in the long run. So it's very important that the people that you're working with understand the strategy that you have chosen for your property.
yeah, for sure. And I kind of want to touch up on like flip numbers. I don't.
Mhm.
We don't flip, but I kind of from talking to other flips, and you can go back to our episode 13 with Kevin and Beatrice. They do buy and holds, but mainly flippers, I would say. But just kind of talking to him, his flip numbers are he grabs ARV, 70% of that minus rehab costs, and that's general, or he does minus holding costs as well, and that's his general pay price that he does. So I know a lot of flippers. I've talked to other flippers too, and he's at 70%. Some are going 75 to be competitive in today's market, just because
Yeah,
so many people are often um because it's just super competitive in Savannah.
it
But
is.
some are going 75% of ARV. I like 70, especially in this kind of market with interest rates going up.
Well, and I have to say, and I shouldn't even say this as an agent, but one thing Kevin and Beatrice didn't cover on the call, but I know they put a lot of work into learning how to sell properties, and they're not agents, but they have an excellent agent that understands investing. So they buy through an agent. And then when they go and sell as flippers, they actually sell themselves. So they have learned how to do that. Typically, an agent will bring you a good bit more because they really know what they're doing, but these guys have really put the time in on that. And so that saves them about, 5 to 6% on the holding and sales costs as well.
Mm.
And that can
Oh,
really
yeah.
go to your numbers. So always, like many of our guests, be creative in all of your numbers. Like, how can I squeeze these or stretch these to make what I want work? And everyone has their own way of doing it.
Yeah. Have your way. Find it probably takes some time. Like, hey, let me try running my numbers this way, and you might not make as much, and then kind of change something the next time. And then you kind of find your way that works and run with it.
What are some other tools that you've used, Chandler? I know you love running deals and you do it quite frequently. So
So
some tools that you use in websites.
rentometer is like the main one. If
Mhm.
you can get the good rent comp for like Airbnb running numbers, AirDNA is probably the best. They're the closest numbers because those are tough numbers to run. I can tell you,
Yeah.
just because one thing can like a pool in the backyard changes numbers big time, or even just having a hot tub. Um, AirDNA's you can select like a pool, hot tub, and all that, and it'll kind of it gives you a good price, but you still got to kind of dig a little bit. Okay, this house has this, while this house doesn't. Um, but yeah, that's another one that I use. And but yeah, Rentometer and AirDNA are probably the two best.
Well, just to give a plug for AirDNA, and again, Chandler and I don't benefit at all. I wish we did in saying this, but you're going to have to pay for AirDNA at some level. But it is worth it because you understand you're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into a property, and it's important for you to have those comps. And so, if you don't have another resource to get them, there is a chance they're going to say, "Hey, we're going to want $10 a month for the service or whatever." I used to pay it, okay, until I got my own property management account. If I was looking pretty heavily at a market, I was going to pay for that service. Why? Because it's way less than what I'm actually investing.
Hmm.
So, some of these services are paid. I know like for wholesalers, they use a lot of services that are paid, and I'm amazed at the capabilities that they have.
I need to learn what they use because they have some cool little technology features.
Yeah, for us to be able to drive around town and kind of highlight properties that we see, and then it can send a postcard to the owner. And it's really I'm trying to think what that one is called. But anyway, we are not wholesalers here, but
And
I understand the concept and I really respect how much the technology has grown in that space. Another technology that we need to be always talking about too is rent collection. Okay, is very important. There are 100 different ways to collect rent, and so a lot are free,
hmm.
or where they'll just kind of make money off of the fees, from the tenant paying the bill. So keep in mind that this is a very simple business, but it's also become a tech business. And the more tech you can utilize, arguably your life is a lot better. For a lot of landlords using their own cell phone. I used to use my own cell phone number, when I dropped off cards for Sid was here when I first opened it up and I was going around to real estate offices. Those cards had my cell phone number. It's free to get a Google Voice number. And once I figured that out, and now that I had that number, I could share it with other people helping me out. Like just using these little systems like that, it was so life changing.
Yeah.
So a
What
lot
do
of
you
things
use to
out
collect
there.
rent?
I'm sorry.
What do you use to collect rent?
I actually use a product. Most people don't talk about it. It's called Hemlane. And again, don't make any money off of saying it. It's very inexpensive. It's $24 per year per property. And I like it. And the best thing about it is that it comes with a free Rocket Lawyer account. If I did not have Hemlane, I would pay for rocketlawyer.com. Now, again, I'm doing a lot of leases. This is not a one rental property organization. This is a property management business, but we write leases at least monthly, sometimes every week. I just did a new commercial lease last night with someone that works here. And just the best thing about Rocket Lawyer, and I think there's another one, I can't think of the names, but every time I go to do a commercial loan, the bank is going to want me to send over the LLC documents. Okay, we have to have a shoot, I'm blanking on everything, but you've got to have all those documents in place. And it's really cool because they take you through the questions. Did you bring any cash to the deal? Who owns what percentage? For me, I'm lucky because it's just myself and my husband. But even for a single member LLC, they're going to want those operating agreements for each LLC. The banks really value those very highly. So, if someone leaves the partnership, how is it handled? It asks you those difficult questions. And instead of paying a lawyer a lot of money and then readjusting it later, I can make these LLC documents on Rocket Lawyer. And then I can, if I want to change it, I go change it and then we sign it over, So I have to say a site like that for legal documents, for leases, LLC documentation, management agreements, like everything is on there. It's been wonderful. Have you used Rocket Lawyer yet, Chandler? You probably
I
haven't
haven't.
been exposed
No,
to
I
it.
haven't. Need to check it out though.
Yeah. For a real estate investor, I do think it's worth it. I don't know what it costs. I'm so sorry because it
Yeah.
comes as part of my property management software.
Well, use that technology, and because it saves you a lot. You think you're spending money, but it actually saves you a lot of money in the long
Right.
in the long run. So
Well, and this is why I'm really obsessed with learning AI because I want to grow the volumes of what I'm doing every year. I want to exponentially grow, but I also want to be able to manage those volumes with the same amount of staff.
yeah,
And I mean, when you're in business, that's a huge, savings right there. Is if you can have one person on doing customer service and be able to write lease and answer texts and handle bookings and da da da. Da. I mean, that's how you're gonna be cooking with grease, as we say.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, we appreciate y'all listening today. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share as much as you can. And we will see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.